All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Walkie Talkie Sit Down. If you are curious about what that is, if you have ever watched my Instagram, you've seen that I used to do what's called a walkie talkie, where I'd go out and I would walk and talk and about nothing and sometimes everything. But thank you, Jenny. So just talk and whatnot. So this is going to be a live version of what I call the walkie-talkie, where we're going to have a conversation live. So today I'm going to be talking with Abbie Romanul. Hi. And she is of We Are Raising the Bar, or Raising the Bar. We Are Raising the Bar on Instagram. And what Raising the Bar is a really cool gift box. So, oh, awesome. Abbie's your sister. Well, I'm super excited to meet her. So what that is a gift box that comes with all these different ingredients that you can use to make a sober alternative to a drink. So I am someone who I used to drink, and I'd always want to go out and have fun, and I always included alcohol in that because to me, alcohol was a part of being social. And so during the pandemic, this is a little background, but during the pandemic, I decided that I wasn't going to drink because when I did drink, I was noticing that alcohol really played into my anxiety. And so I decided that because of that, I was not going to drink during the pandemic. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Abbie has requested to join, so we're going to have her come. Anytime you guys have any questions, please just drop them below. We'll be happy to answer. Either Abbie or I can answer them for you. Probably more her, but hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Good. It's great to see you.
You too. I feel like I've been messaging with, I was like, it's like a ghost. And then I'm like, hold on, let me make sure this is who I think it is. And I was like, this is Abbie, right? This is who my emails are coming from when I order and stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been so great getting to know you through your platform and just see you spreading the word about the kind of sober curious, and the fact that you're exploring this during a pandemic is such an amazing thing, I think.
Yeah. I mean, for me, and I shared a little bit in my blog story, but for me, I had come to realize that anytime I drank, especially as I got older, like once I hit 30, it was like anytime I drank, it was like more and more increasingly I felt bad. Days after I drank, it didn't matter if I had 5 drinks or 1 drink or whatever. I always felt kind of anxious the next day. Or I had anxiety and I was nervous. Like, what did I say? Did I do something? Did I call someone? Going through my text messages, just to make sure. And it just was always this feeling of, oh, I'm going to not be productive. And I lost an entire day of productivity because I was always nursing this hangover or this feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so I had decided during the pandemic, I was like, okay, you already have anxiety. It's a pandemic. You already think you have COVID every day. Like any cough, anything that was going on, I was like, it's COVID. And so I was like, let's not add alcohol to that, because if I do, I'm going to lose my mind. And so I just stopped drinking at that moment. And I've gone periods without drinking because I've done the Whole30 and I've done other things. Yeah. And I've had, months without drinking, but this was something that I was really curious about. And then I don't even remember how I came across your box, but I was like, this is really cool. Because for so many, and like I explained, it was a social thing for me, for drinking. And so I was like, well, I was doing all these Zoom happy hours, and I'm like, well, I have my water, and everyone's like, what are you drinking? What are you drinking? And I'm like, water. And it just felt I just felt left out. And it wasn't, and like, I'm a Libra, so I love to be in the mix. And so I just felt left out. And so I came across your box, and I'm like, this is the coolest thing. So we kind of started talking, and I got the world on fire. I drank it on election night, which felt really perfect. Really perfect. Yeah. So I was like, I've got to talk to you. So I'm super excited for having you on. And I've just got so many questions for you now.
Yeah. Well, I just have to say your story sounds so much like mine. And as you know, this month I'm coming up on 2 years without alcohol in my life. And the anxiety feeling, that's one that I think has been one of the biggest changes, is just realizing that I thought I was drinking to cope with my anxiety, and alcohol is actually adding fuel to the flames. So I think anxiety, especially in this climate with the pandemic and the election and everything going on in our country, obviously anxiety is still a part of my life, but it is amazing waking up every morning with that feeling that you described, not being there. What did I say? What did I do? What did I forget? What do I have to apologize for? And there's enough in this world that we have to deal with. to not just add unnecessary other anxieties on top of. So that's been, I think, one of the biggest things. And, you know, you mentioned being social. I always considered myself the life of the party, everybody's best friend, the kind of the instigator, like, let's all go out and have a good time.
Yeah.
And when I stopped drinking, that was one of the things that I really, really missed, that kind of festive celebratory drink. And that is where the whole idea for Raising the Bar came from, because I really selfishly, I wanted something like that for myself. So it's just been so gratifying to get to share that with other people and feel like there is an opportunity to help people feel that celebratory, special festiveness that they're maybe missing if they're cutting alcohol out.
Yeah. I mean, I was super excited to find it. And especially, I mean, when I was making drinks, I was making like a vodka soda. I wasn't, you know, I wasn't going all out. I wasn't being creative because that just wasn't me. I'm just like, just give me a vodka soda or I'd make it at home or whatever. But this gave me an opportunity to try like being a mixologist. And it was super fun when I got my first box and I'm like opening, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm reading the instructions and thinking I'm super fancy. Cause I'm like, oh, and then I mix a little this and a little that. And, you know, and I'm like, like my brother, I live with my brother. I'm like, do you want to try it? Like, you know, I'm just really excited because I made this drink. And I think that it just made me feel again, you know, and not to say that alcohol it's such so nuanced, because I feel like there are issues that come with alcohol, you know, there with sobriety and things like that. And it may not be a good fit for someone who has struggled with alcohol. And I wouldn't say that I was someone that struggled with alcohol, but I did have that enjoyment of just like going out and having a little drink but it was always never worth it the next day. You know, I was like, sometimes I'm like, oh, it's fine, it'll be worth it, it's great. And then I'd be like, why did I do that? Because now like people are like, let's go on a hike. Remember you said we were going to go for brunch? I'm like, I'm not going for brunch. I can't.
All the things you miss out on
right now.
Exactly. And I think you raised a really good point. Like, this type of product isn't for everybody. So I think, you know, there's so much more attention these days to the kind of sober curious movement. So maybe people don't identify as an alcoholic in order to cut alcohol from their lives. And for some people, these alcohol alternatives, whether it's a mocktail or a no or low alcohol alternative mixed drink, pre-bottled, or an alcohol-free beer, those can be big triggers for some people. And I know in the blog post you shared with your recommendations, you make the really good point. It's a very personal decision. These are not products for everybody. Only you know what is right for you. But for those who want that and have that, I think it can actually be an incredible tool to help you meet your goals. Right. Because you're providing something that is that fun celebratory thing that you're not missing anymore, because, you know, you have that glass in your hand.
Right.
And make the night a lot easier.
Right. And I had some questions like in my Instagram after the fact of when I posted, and I had some people, because some of the things that I tried, and if you guys aren't, you can read the blog, but some of the different ones I tried were more made to kind of mimic alcohol, to kind of taste like alcohol, which I thought, you know, there's that, there was Ritual, Zero Proof, there was 30 cocktails, there was hop tea, and they all kind of like had that alcohol flavor. But what I noticed, or like made me feel kind of more like I had that, but what I noticed about the box was that it was just different flavors that was almost, it wasn't like meant to mimic alcohol, really. It was meant to mimic the experience of a fancy drink. So there is something a little bit for everybody, because you have the sober curious who are like, well, I still really like the taste of a margarita. Like, I love the spicy margarita. So for like adding that, like that tequila, the zero proof tequila, is a good thing for me when I want to have a margarita, or like a light margarita when I have the spirity cocktails. But for yours, and I had people that were like, well, I don't like the taste of alcohol at all. And I'm like, okay, well, the box would be for you, because it's not like I felt like I was drinking alcohol. I felt like I had a cocktail, but I didn't taste. It wasn't like I was like tasting alcohol or like trying to get that feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's been really interesting for me just experimenting with all of these things, because we make the recipes ourselves at home and we test things out and come up with them, and just understanding how different ingredients that I might not think of can be really complex bases for an alcohol-free cocktail. And to your point, not mimic the taste of alcohol, but have that kind of complexity and depth. So for instance, our most recent box, the November box, was Cranberry Dreams. And the basis for that was an unsweetened chai concentrate and apple cider jus, which is this kind of dry, it's often used for, you know, brines or salad dressings. And it's dry apple juice that is from the
Oh,
apple
wow.
that is not ripe. So it's really crisp and dry, and I would never drink it on its own, but in concert with some other things, the flavors really work well together. And again,
Mm-hmm.
provide that complexity without, tasting like alcohol. So you're not replacing it. And I think something we might explore in the future is trying to include some things like ritual
Yeah.
missions, these amazing other spirits. And I think we're still relatively new, so we're kind of finding out what our consumer base is really interested in.
Right.
So it's something to explore for sure. But I think, to your point, there is a really incredible growing industry of so many different alternatives to alcohol. So it's a really exciting time to be kind of part of this.
Yeah. Well, and I found too, because a lot of them are made from tea, which I think, I mean, because you have kombucha that's kind of brewed that way. You have a lot of them that are kind of have that tea as a base, which I think is really interesting to see how tea is kind of becoming this, this new product, but it's like the old product, but they just create it differently, or they're brewing it, or they're, distilling it, or whatever it is. And it just becomes this new product, which I think is really cool to see, just the change behind it. And
Absolutely.
so were you like a mixologist before, or like, were you interested in like mixing drinks, or was this kind of something that came up as you started this business?
Yeah. So again, to my former life of the party status.
Yes.
I've always loved kind of hosting and throwing parties and making drinks. My background is actually in art history and museums. So I did curatorial work for a while, and that kind of love of curating spilled over into the kitchen. So wanting to find ingredients that paired well together. And then that also spilled into my cocktail love. So I think one of the things that I love about working on this box is that kind of curatorial background paired with that love of entertaining is all kind of coming together in this way. And there's just such an incredible landscape. I know one of the things we've talked about is like during this time, there's so much kind of attention going on to people's behaviors, coping with things during the pandemic. And I think it's just an amazing opportunity for the alcohol-free movement and brands to kind of emerge and break through and start to compete a little bit with the alcohol industry. We've been marketed, especially as women, so heavily by the alcohol industry. And now I think people are getting excited that there's a whole new slew of brands coming out that are outside of that spectrum, and we can still have fun with it
right.
in a less detrimental way.
Yeah. So we had a question that was, what is your process like for choosing the flavors and materials in the mocktails?
Yeah, that's a great question. So basically, we kind of brainstorm thematically what flavors might work well for a month, or if there's a certain theme for a drink. And then we essentially just buy a whole bunch of things, or, try samples that we've been sent, and have a night where we mix things up. And when we finally get a concept we're happy with, then we tweak based on the ratios, and then go from there. So it's been a huge learning process. And I think as we get bigger, it would be really fun to kind of work with guest bartenders or mixologists.
Yeah.
But for now, it's been just us. And I have to say, like, it's been so much fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun night, like a little date night you can have.
Exactly. Like, and it's funny, we have 3 kids, and our older 2 are 7 and almost 5. And, they understand that alcohol is not for kids, and in moderation for some adults. So they always ask, Mommy, can we try the raising the bar drinks? So they'll provide feedback. I have to admit, their flavor profile might not be nuanced as most of our consumers, but it's been fun. Everybody in the family has kind of gotten on board.
Yeah, I had the box, the World on Fire, which was super, super fun, and felt very appropriate for what was going on and everything. I had that, and then I've also ordered the December box, so I'm really excited about that, and seeing kind of what you've got for that. But I think it makes me feel like I can have and it does have the availability for 4 different servings, so I feel like I can have some like throughout, and I'll have usually the first time I had like 2 and 2, and then I was like, oh. But then the next morning I felt great. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I had so much to drink or whatever, but
that feeling
it felt
does
like
not get old.
But I felt like I had that excitement or drowning my sorrows of, like everyone else is talking about, gosh, I'm drowning my sorrows. I had a beer or whatever on election night, and I'm like, I'm drowning my sorrows, and I had this, I had this drink, and so it was just like such a, kind of fun to be included in like the messages that people were saying, and like just everything that I saw. I didn't have FOMO because I suffer from FOMO just terribly.
The FOMO, totally. And I think it's funny, now I'm thinking about the brand ritual. Drinking is a ritual, right? For those of us who were drinkers and are not, I think a lot of it is just that ritual of drinking that we miss, not so much the feeling itself. So I think that's a big part of it, mixing something up, being able to kick one back and feel great the next day, but you still got that experience. And to your point, I'm ending the day with a Brooklyn Lager, alcohol-free beer, which is a wonderful one. I can make a recommendation. So our box does focus on the alcohol-free cocktails, but there is also an amazing landscape of alcohol-free beers and wines coming on as well. Which is really cool.
Yeah, my parents used to buy some years ago actually de-alcoholized wine, which was like, it's like wine and then they just remove the alcohol.
They were trendsetters.
Yeah, this was like some years ago. So that was pretty cool. But I will say for me too, like alcohol addiction does run in my family. So it's always something too for me to have kept mind of and been noticing, especially as I got older, that, you know, this doesn't make me feel good, but I'm still continuing to do this. So is there something that's continuing to make me feel that way? So that's something else that kind of crept into my mind as I was going through this of like, this is definitely something that I want to go into and look more into because I know there is that predisposition in my family to have that addiction. But then there was that predisposition in me that wanted to be out, wanted to be about. And so I was like, well, this could be dangerous if I'm not careful. And so that was kind of one of the other things in noticing that anxiety and being really aware of, okay, like this is popping up for me after these nights out, or it was awful. So it's just this landscape is so great. And they do have, I know Jenny said about the wine, they have some at, I don't know the brand, maybe my mom can type it in here because we used to get it, she used to get it all the time. But they have it at a lot of the wine stores and it's just de-alcoholized wine and they just remove the alcohol. So
I know one of the brands is, are you familiar with Frey wines? I know that.
Yeah, I haven't tried Frey. It started with an A, I think, the one that they bought. But
Ariel? Is it
yes,
Ariel?
Yes. So that one, I mean, I think it's cool because I was always, I always did enjoy a glass of wine, but then wine always gave me a headache. So.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And like what you're describing is, kind of assessing as you go out, that mindfulness. And I think, really kind of tapping into, does this serve me well? And one of the things I've been really conscious about, like in my own social life, is I don't want everybody to stop drinking. That's not what my goal is. My goal is, if it doesn't serve people well, sharing the fact that there are other choices and other alternatives. And I think that's kind of funny. It's like, any other substance, people won't be like, oh, I'm so sorry you stopped using cocaine. Like, right. Like it's this really awkward thing for some people. And I'm sure if I think back and, had somebody stop drinking in my life, I was probably awkward about it until I reached the point where I was like, wow, this is like, I just know this is no longer right for me. Yeah.
That kind of brings me to a question I had for you actually, was about the pushback that kind of seems to happen when you quit drinking. Like for me, like the couple times I've done it, because I've done it multiple times, but it's kind of like, what? Like, why? I mean, it was just this like so offended that I was like, well, I'm not drinking right now, or I'm not drinking anymore, or I'm going a month, or however long you decide. And people are like as if it was personally offensive to them. And I'm curious of, did you have any of that pushback? And then how did you handle it when that did come up, if it came up?
Absolutely. I do feel like with a certain group of people in my life, and these were probably people who were more, if I am honest about it, party buddies rather than like deep people who I have that real connection with, feeling like, why would you do that? And I almost got the sense that it was like, you're more fun when you drink. And it was taking something away from their experience. So I think over the past couple of years, certainly some relationships have been reevaluated, and I've really come to see who those true connections are, and getting to see what it's like to make friends who know me as a non-drinker. Like, so many friends from high school and college and work relationships. Alcohol was a huge part of it. So it's been really liberating to make new connections in that way. But yeah, there definitely is pushback. Some people are like, well, just have one. And I'm like, don't you think I have tried to moderate? Don't you think that like I have been drinking since I was 15 or 16 years old. And I knew from then, if I'm honest, and I look back, that I could not be a drinker. And so it took almost 20 years to say, all right, it's not moderating, because you've tried moderating repeatedly and you keep ending up in the same place. So, there was just one day where I woke up with a twinge of a hangover. I was like, enough. I never want to feel like this again. Like, that's it. And that was the last day. And it was simple as I was just sick of feeling frustrated with it. And, you know, I feel really grateful that I was able to do that without having to see, I mean, there were plenty of lows, plenty of lows, but like, I'm so grateful that I was able to make that decision on my own, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely something too, that I think, I was a binge drinker for sure. I mean, it's like one would lead into then another. It's like, oh, and I never understood people like, oh, I'll just have a beer. I was like, how do you
why?
Like a glass of wine. And I was always that person that was like, why don't you just have 4? I don't know, like, you know,
what's the point of one beer?
Right. Like, and that was always kind of like my thinking when I drink. And that is also a dangerous space to be in, I think, because it can lead into so much more. But I always kind of was under that impression. Or when I lived by myself, I would open a bottle of wine, but then I'm like, well, I can't just leave the rest of the bottle. Like, and then the whole thing would be gone. And it was like, I'm sitting here by myself just drinking, and no judgment to people who do that. It's fine. But for me, it wasn't something that I knew. I knew that there was danger in that for me personally because of the history in my family. And so I just, like, you know, and it tapered down, and I drank way less as of recent, just because as I got older, I was like, oh my God, everything hurts. Like,
there is something at 30 that resets, I swear to God. And it's just not possible anymore.
Yeah, it was like, every morning it'd be like I got hit in the head, and then I felt my heart palpitations, and I felt dizzy, and I felt awful, and it didn't matter how much I had, and I was just like, okay, like, and then when that pandemic hit, I was like, no, you're not going to do this, because, you know, like, you're going in the wrong direction. So
totally.
But I had that same kind of thing when I quit before, not this time, but when I've quit previously, about like, well, you're not drinking, and like, are you sure? And the same thing with you feeling like you're like, am I not fun when I'm sober? Like, I thought it was super fun.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then talk about anxiety, then you start to question, like, well, who am I? And I think there's like a lot of soul searching that has to be done once you kind of make that decision, because you are reevaluating a big piece of your life and who you are. And, you know, I'm still kind of grappling with that 2 years later, but I have really been able to reprioritize a lot of things in my life now that I've had that clarity of who do I want to be? Like, who am I? What's important to me? And this has been a huge part of that.
Yeah. So, you guys launched in August. So kind of in the pandemic, were you like already planning to launch at that time when you launched, or was it like kind of came up from it? And then, and what are the advantages to having launched during same thing, pandemic anxiety, same thing, but having to have launched during the pandemic with the rise of anxiety?
It's such a great question. So this idea has been kicking around for literally 2 years. The month I got sober, like, we came up with this idea, and we toyed with it. And then finally, I'd say at the beginning of the year, so in January, we finally were like, okay, we need to have somebody help with branding. Like, let's really think about this. And just as we were starting to gain momentum, March hit. I was 7 months pregnant, and suddenly working full time, homeschooling 2 kids, and all of the momentum that we had with this just completely stopped. And I said, like, you know, my goal had been to launch before I went on maternity leave, and then it became impossible. We were just getting by day by day by day.
Right.
And, the baby was born in May, and we worked a little bit more on it over the summer, but kids were not in school, kids were not in camp. Same. I had a new baby. It was really kind of overwhelming to think about. And then the day before I went back to work full time, I was like, if I do not launch this website tonight, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
And so we launched the night before I went back to work. And I'm so glad we did, because to your point, I think it's a great outlet for this time. I think e-commerce is obviously so important right now in every category, not just this category. But I think people are reevaluating their habits in a really big way. And if this was an issue before, then it's certainly an issue now as we all cope with really challenging circumstances. And it's, you know, I think it has absolutely, I mean, I hate to say it's great timing. Nobody wants
right.
this pandemic. Nobody wants any of this. But I feel like there is a little bit of like a happy accident in terms of the delay and when everything happened.
Right.
And the response we've had, I mean, you know, I'm doing this in nights and weekends, so it doesn't have my full attention. I hope that changes in the future, but we've been able to kind of ramp up slowly, and the support we've gotten and the feedback we've gotten has been so amazing. And I just feel really, really lucky to get to do it and share it, and meeting people like you and others
I know, it's
who,
been incredible.
You know, have similar stories, has been so gratifying.
Yeah, and I read, and I don't remember where I read it from, so I mean, don't quote me, but I did read somewhere that the alcohol consumption has increased in women far more than men during the pandemic, which I have found to be interesting. But I mean, I think to your point of being the wife, the mom, the teacher, all of these things, that these roles that like more so women were forced into at this point, which is also another statistic. I'm not just saying women do more anything than men, but statistically women have been pushed into being that role, while like the men were still able to work, some of them, and the ones that were able to. Yeah. But the mom kind of took over with the cook, the clean, and everything. And I think that's probably where it stems from, that the alcohol consumption in women has increased. But I just thought that was so interesting. And I mean, I see it in a lot of my friends, you know, even too. And I mean, it's fine. Like I said, if that's a choice, you know, it's all personal choice for everybody, if that's what you choose to make. But it's just been so interesting to see, like, I see a lot more like mama needs a wine, or like all these, you know, it's just like that I've never seen. Right. And I've never seen anything like that. Like I have now, about how, you know, it's like to cope with what's happening. And it's so crazy to see like how that's become such that like it's been this crutching mechanism. I
mean, it makes me cringe when I see them, because if I'm perfectly honest, 2+ years ago, I was probably the one sharing those memes, laughing about it. Like, oh my God, like kids wine for mama, you know?
Right.
And, now it just makes me really sad, because I know probably many of these women are okay, and it's just seems funny to them, but I'm sure many of them are not okay. Yeah. And behind the jokes and the laughs about this kind of mommy drinking culture is a lot of sadness and anxiety and fear. And I think it's a really kind of interesting time, because I think there's a huge health and wellness trend that is influencing the sober curious and the no and low movement. But then at the same time, with the pandemic descending upon us, and to your point, women being oftentimes more than men really thrust into these roles at home with homeschooling, trying to juggle home and working. And that's setting it back in a lot of ways. And I think also in general, women are marketed more to the alcohol trends than men are. And it's really disappointing. But I'm hopeful that people will continue to reevaluate. And I think this is, you know, hashtag these unprecedented times we've all talked about. Like, they really are unprecedented times. And I think we just need to get through them, right? We need to get through them. And for some people that looks different than others. And, I hope that this won't be forever, but I agree. It is really disappointing to see how hard it has hit women in particular.
And I mean, it's been, I mean, I feel like even when you look at alcohol containers, like a lot of things are pushed towards women. I mean, the packaging, the marketing, it's just like made, because I'm a sucker for a good package. Like, if something's a cute package, I'm like, yes. Like, even like you guys, everything the package it comes in, I'm like, this is so cute, you know. And it makes me so excited to get them. Like, this is great. And looking at, you know, your Instagram and seeing like when the boxes are coming out, what they're gonna look like. It's just like, I'm a visual person. I like the aesthetic, but that's easy to get like sucked into as well. Like cute names like Yes Way Rosé and all these little things, you know, that are, but they're really pushing to women, and that just your mind. I mean, it's really just, you're like, wow, how did I get here?
Absolutely.
I'm like, I'm shopping for this because it's cute. Like, I don't even know how it tastes,
or it's sophisticated or elegant or any of these things. And I'm in branding, like for my day job, I work in marketing.
Okay.
So
I was like, branding, fantastic branding. So, okay.
So branding is big for me too. And I'm a sucker for packaging like you are. So I think one of the things that, again, is really great about this space is the kind of packaging trends are spilling over into the alcohol-free space. So that's fun. And, you know, again, with the rise of e-commerce, like we all need cheering up and happy mail. So to get those beautiful packages.
Yeah, it's been super fun. I'm like, my poor brother, I have kind of a shopping issue and things, and I get some things are sent from some of the companies I work with, and he's like, you have another package, and I'm like, oh, do I? You know, and I'm like, this is weird. I didn't know.
Oh, that's strange.
Yeah. Oh, strange. As I go to the mail the door every single, like I can hear that now there's like, and I'm like opening the door 2 seconds later, and I'm like, it's here. So, but it's fun. It is fun. It's fun to get that. It's fun.
Yes.
I mean, it's been, you know, exciting to have something different and having, you know, with your boxes delivered to my door, and then I could make this fun drink. And I felt, you know, I shared about it on Instagram because I thought it was so neat that, you know, I was this mixologist and my glasses are not fancy or nothing's fancy about what I have, but it was just like cool to have, like, I kind of like took my picture and I posed it. And it's like the same thing that people would do when they go to bars or restaurants and they, you know, but I felt like, okay, here's my drink. And that felt like I was in tune and in it with everybody else. So.
And that's another great point. Like, I think, again, there's so many incredible bottled beverages that are out there right now, but I think one of the things we wanted to do with this box was bring you an experience, right? Yes. Because again, we're not going out to the bars. We're not going out to socialize in the same way that we were before. So if you can bring part of that experience in the home, especially during this time, I think that is filling a gap for a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, like, you know, and I think it would be fun to have, like, to bring to a party or, you know, because there's always the party that happens and you're just like, and when you're not drinking and you're just kind of like, you know, twiddling your thumb. But it'd be fun if you're just like, oh, I got my own stuff and still mixing it up and doing like all the stuff and still feeling just as fun. But, you know, I think, and I mentioned in the blog, but it would be like an incredible gift. It's a great gift, like would make a great gift for someone, especially this holiday season, people. But a great gift for someone who's like curious about being sober, even if they're not really, it's still just a cool gift for anybody. You know, I think even if you're like, I love to drink, I'm never gonna stop drinking, that's cool. Like, this is a really cool, fun thing still.
Exactly. And that's, one really cool thing we got to do this past month was we actually had a corporate order reach out to us. So they were doing gifts for their employees for holiday season, and they're going to make a Raising the Bar drink on their Zoom call with their CEO.
Oh, that's so fun.
And they wanted to have an inclusive experience. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I've had many a holiday party in the past where I wake up regretting the things I said or who I talked to or not.
Right, when you're talking to the CEO and you're like, did I say that?
Yeah. So I was so excited about that. And I think it's really cool that they had a mind towards inclusivity. You know, not everyone drinks. You know, if somebody really wanted to add a spirit to their Raising the Bar drink, they totally could. That's totally up to them. So we were really, really excited by that. It was a really cool opportunity. And I think, you know, as this goes on, this climate goes on, other companies will start to be thinking about remote ways to celebrate. And I think this is a really great option for that.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that can be done with it. And that's why I love this so much. And I'm really grateful to have kind of found this space, you know, whether I don't even know how, scrolling and mindless scrolling, endless scrolling, because that's what I do started doing at the beginning of the pandemic. But I was so grateful to just come across that and start following. And I was like, this is a really great idea. And it kind of led me, then of course I got targeted ads for like everybody else. So I started getting targeted ads for all the other low and no alcohol things. And so I was able to try those and really just, and I think in the one that I tried, just because I am a Whole30 coach, and it was a tea that was tastes like beer, which was the strangest thing to me. I was like, this is tea, but it tastes like a beer, but this is really like, and so I had a lot of clients that would be doing Whole30 with me, and they're like, I miss drinking. I'm like, well, this tastes just like a beer, but it's tea. So
do you know what it's called? I want to check
it's called hot tea.
And hot tea.
Like,
yeah.
And it just tastes like, I promise I mean, I don't drink much beer, so I couldn't, I mean, for me, what tastes just like beer and a beer, like a craft beer drinker being like, no, it does, like, you know what I mean? I don't really know. But for me, I was like, wow, I feel like I'm drinking a beer. And that's so different to me when it's tea, and it's something that you can actually have on Whole30, which is another thing that, you know, because Whole30 is no alcohol. So it was just this kind of fun thing that I thought and had found, but was able to really like try these different things out. And I've been just so surprised on like some of them, how much they do taste like alcohol. And then the experience of yours and how much it just felt like alcohol, even though it was like not even a single drop of taste of alcohol. It just felt like it. And it had that like kick, because I had the World on Fire one. So it had that like spice to it. And I was like, oh, this feels like my spicy margarita. This feels, so it just like, it's made me feel like some type of included during the pandemic.
I love that.
So thank you for coming up with this idea. It's really great.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So I guess final question is just, how do you envision raising the bar, just changing the mocktail space in the future? And what do you like hope for it to grow into?
Yeah. So I think for sure this concept isn't new. When we started kind of looking into the market, there were so many alcohol-based cocktail kits. But we really found that, you know, there was a gap for this. So I think I've seen a couple others pop up. I'm sure more will. And I come from an abundance mindset that, you know, we have our angle, others are going to their angle, and the more the better. I think this industry is growing so quickly, and I think it's going to continue to grow. I think, you know, the brands in the space are doing incredible things, and there is an appetite for like you and me to feel included, to feel festive, to feel like you're having something different and celebratory. So I think, you know, we're a very, very, very small part of an incredibly fast growing and exciting industry that hopefully will really change the way people think about drinking and alcohol. And again, my aim is not to go out there and get people to stop drinking if that's not what their goal is. It's to provide alternatives, whether it's because you have a medical condition, you're pregnant, you have a family history that you're concerned about, you're taking a break for whatever reason, or you just don't drink. We just want people to feel included and part of the fun. So I'm really excited to see where the industry goes, and it is very, very exciting for us to be a little part of it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I look forward to when the world is normal again and I can like actually go to a party and just bring it with me, so I can be like, oh, don't worry, I've got my own little things. So I'm excited for that.
That's awesome.
Because it is such a weird time. But it's nice to be able to do it at my house, but it's like part of me is like, I still want to go out. I still want to go like mix my drink out and about with people. Of course. You know?
Yeah. Well, and then that's part of it, right? Like when you go out, you're like, ooh, what drink do you have? Like, you know, it's just interesting to see what people are having and ask about the flavors. But one idea I had, and we haven't really promoted this on social at all, but as people are doing these kind of remote holiday parties, like it would be a really fun thing for friends to send to each other and mix together on a call. Or my husband's friends, I think, are probably going to do an alcohol-based version of one of our kits, just as like a celebratory thing. But again, while we're all kind of yearning for that connection and missing being in person, again, that experiential element of being able to do something that you can enjoy together.
Yeah, I think there's so much desire for connection right now. And a lot of it's been via social media or Zoom, or, you know, it's all technological based right now. And so it's like, it's exciting to be able to have that option. But it's like, as soon as I can do stuff, I'm like, I'm bringing it with me. It's going to be an event thing. So, and someone asked, yes, this will be shared to IGTV after this. So you can, or save it, share it, all those good things. And I hope you guys do. But so I just want to finish up with letting you go ahead and tell people where they can find you guys, how they can order, anything like that you kind of want to throw in there.
Awesome. So we're at weareraisingthebar.com, and our website is here on Instagram. You can buy a one-off box. You can buy a subscription. You can buy a gift. So lots of ways. You don't have to do a monthly commitment. If you do want to try a subscription, you can cancel anytime. But we're just super excited. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me through Instagram. It's just me and my husband running the show, so you will get us, and we are happy to answer anything. But we're super excited to get to know you, Brittany, and thank you so much for having this conversation. It's been so fun getting to know you.
I know, I'm excited, and I can vouch. She always responds to my DMs, so she's there. And sometimes we talk about other things like the undoing and other things that you can talk about. So, but I thank you so much for just coming on and kind of sharing your story and why you made this leap into this. And I'm grateful that you did, because now I have options and I don't have to feel like I have FOMO all the time. So I'm just, and making nasty drinks that I'd be making myself of like God knows what I'd be making. It would be awful. It'd be like soda water. I'll just throw. It would be awful. They'd be disgusting. So I'm so grateful, and I cannot wait. I'm super excited for my December box, and don't worry, guys. I'll be posting about it on social, so you'll see, and I'll be talking about how lovely it is, I'm sure. But thank you again so much, Abbie. I really appreciate it, and I will be sharing this on IGTV, so you guys can go ahead and watch it after the fact if you missed any of the beginning. So yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.